Hello there, fish friends. It's time to do part 2 of the fish room tour. Last week, we took a look at the bottom floor of the fish barn that had my larger, more display type tanks. Today we're going to head to the upstairs, which has my smaller breeding type setups. So let's go ahead and walk out to the barn on this snowy day and get started. Let's go ahead and head to the top of the stairs and start out with my favorite Limia species, the Limia Melanogaster. I really do enjoy the sheens and really bright coloration on this fish, especially on the adults. I really don't have too many adults in here at the moment, but once we do, these fish will really shine. But as you can see, these fish do have some really colorful sheens and are definitely beautiful, especially for a wild type Livebearer. So let's look at the next 20-gallon tank, which is home to the Xiphopohorous Evelynae, or Pueblo platy, which is native to Mexico. This is a fun little fish. I really enjoy its gray body with its speckled markings. Definitely a fun fish if you want to mess around with some rare Livebearers. So let's move over to this next 20-gallon tank and take a look at the Xenotoca Doadroi. These are some of my favorite Goodeids in the aquarium hobby, with their bright orange tails and blue markings. I really think these are a unique fish, and they're definitely one I really enjoy. I have started to see some fry from these fish as well, which is something that I really strive for here in the fish tank barn with my Goodeids, is to get these reproducing and getting them out to some of my other fish keeping friends. So the next 20-gallon tank here are some gold delta guppies that I got from the Michigan Guppy Breeders Show back in 2019. These fish were a little slow to reproduce for me, but after a couple of years now, I have started to see some fry and seen this colony start to grow. So the next tank here is my breeding pair of Kribensis. They mostly spend their time in the two tubes, one fish in one tube and one fish in the other tube. I do get some fry from these fish, but unfortunately, I'm usually not fast enough to scoop them out of the tank and get them into a rearing tank. Something I gotta do better on here in the future. So let's talk about one of the newest additions in the fish room, these Melanistic Gambusia Holbrooki. Melanistic is a term for black, and you'll see the black pigment on the males. The males are the only fish that will have the black pigment. It will travel through the males from generation to generation as long as you don't introduce any fish without the melanistic trait into the colony. I got these fish at our last November auction for the Fish Club, and I'm definitely really excited to get some fry going and get this species out to some of my other fish keeping friends. So next up is one of two fish in the fish room that are actually extinct in the wild, and this is the Xiphophorous Couchianus, or Monterey platy. This fish is native to Mexico from the Huatusca Canyon region, and unfortunately went extinct due to habitat destruction in its native environment. I really enjoy having these fish. I was actually able to pass a group of them onto another member of my fish club as well, which is something I'm pretty proud of, to get this fish out and get it to more people. I do think it's important that hobbyists keep fish like this, because we can play a vital role in keeping these fish alive and keeping this species from going extinct. So it's definitely something I'm pretty proud of. I'm definitely looking forward to growing more of these out and getting these out to some more of my fish keeping friends. So let's take a look at another wild type platy, the Xiphophorous Variata from Rio Encino. I've had these fish for a little bit under a year, and I've unfortunately have not seen any fry yet, but we'll keep working on it. Hopefully we'll get some soon. So let's take a look at another Goodeid, the Characodon Lateralis, or Black Prince Goodeid. This is a pretty cool fish, and I really enjoy the males with their black tails and gray body. Definitely a pretty stunning fish. Unfortunately, I've not had any fry from these yet, but this might be a longer term project. We'll not give up, and we'll keep it going and see if we can get some fry out of these guys. Next up is another pretty cool combination with these White Cloud Mountain minnows, as well as these Xiphophorous Maculatus from Rio Grijalva. I've had the White Clouds for quite a long time, but just recently got the Xiphophorous Maculatus at our local fish auction back in November. We're looking forward to getting these platies grown out and starting getting some fry reproduced and seeing how these fish turn out in general. Something I'm pretty excited about. So next up are these Chapalichtys Pardalis. You've already seen a group of these earlier on in this video, but this is the group I originally started with that didn't have the location information. So we'll probably be rehoming these fish at our next auction here in February. I definitely do think this is a pretty cool species with its black dots and silver body. So let's take a look at these black bar endlers. These are a pure wild type endler and definitely one of my favorites. If memory serves me correct, I probably had these endlers for the longest period of time here in the barn. They've been pretty prolific and great fry producers, and definitely are great fish for both your experienced and your beginner hobbyists alike. So let's go ahead and take a look at the knife livebearer, or the Sulphurophilia. This is a cool little livebearer that's native to Central America and kind of a pretty interesting looking fish. I just got this fish recently at our local club auction in November, and really excited to see if I can get this species breeding, and maybe even getting some more out to my other fellow hobbyists. So this 20-gallon tank was recently featured in another video talking about my perfect breeding setup. This tank is home to the Characodon Lateralis, which is a species that I've been working on breeding for quite a long time with very little success. So I've added quite a few plants to this tank. We've started to see some fry in this tank and really starting to see this colony start to develop. So this is definitely a model for all the other 20-gallon tanks here in the fish barn. So next up we get to the second fish that's extinct in the wild here in the fish tank barn. And this is the Skiffia Francessae, or golden Skiffia. This fish is native to Mexico, and like the Xiphophorous Couchianus we spoke of earlier, its habitat was destroyed by pollution and other elements of habitat destruction. So I'm definitely happy to have these fish here in the fish barn. It's definitely a really beautiful fish, and I'm glad I'm able to keep it and preserve it in the hobby. Alright, so let's head over to these 29-gallon tanks. And this first 29-gallon tank has got a pretty interesting combination. Unfortunately, it only has 2 male koi swordtails, but also has a pretty cool looking Limia species, the Limia Sulphurophilia. So I don't know what I'm going to do with the swordtails, because I keep losing female koi swordtails, and then I just keep ending up with males. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with these yet. Guess I'm going to be on the hunt for some more female koi swordtails, but we'll see where that goes. Definitely do enjoy the sheens on these Limia. Absolutely beautiful. So gotta get the Limia breeding, find some female swordtails, and we'll be in business. Alright, so we're now gonna hit the bottom 29-gallon tank, and this is home to the Leopard Goodeid, or Xenotoca Variata. This is a fish I think is pretty cool, and one that I actually got from the Grand Valley Aquarium Club back a few years ago as fry, and now are producing fry of their own. It's really kind of rewarding when you can have a fish complete the circle of life, starting out as fry, and then giving birth to their own fry, and you being able to give those fry out to your other fish keeping friends. I think it's definitely very rewarding and one of the more fun things to do here in the aquarium hobby. So now we're going to head across the aisle and start at the front and look at these 2 5-gallon tanks right at the bottom here. So in this first tank we have this group of Poeciliopsis Prolifica. This is a really tiny livebearer that I got at the ALA auction back in October. This is a really cool tiny little fish, and like its name says, it's been pretty prolific, producing quite a few fry already, only having been in the fish room a couple of months. Moving over to the next tank, I was only able to film one of these, but these are the Dwarf Merry Widow livebearers, which is another cool little nano livebearer. Definitely want to get some more of these and get these going back up in the fish barn. So next up, we have these pretty cool endlers that I got from Sergeant Tank, being the Compoma Blue Stars, which are definitely a pretty beautiful and pretty neat little endler. They share this tank with a large group of cherry shrimp, with which I find the colors on these shrimp to be absolutely striking. So next up, we've got this little livebearer, the Poecilia Obscura, from the Rio La Sieva in Trinidad. This is a pretty neat little livebearer with this orange tail and black spots. This is very similar to your guppies and endlers, with the females being drab and the males having all the color. So this is a pretty neat little livebearer, and definitely a fish I enjoy. Really looking forward to brooding out here in the fish barn. So next up, we come to one of my egg-laying breeding projects, the Odessa Barbs. I picked up this breeding pair from a local swap last fall, and despite very minimal effort on my part, we've actually started to see some results. If you look closely, you notice there's one fish that's smaller than the rest of the group. That fish was actually born in this tank and grew up eating all the microfauna and other mulm in this tank. So I'm definitely pretty excited to know that I can breed these fish in this tank. Now it's just time to put a little bit more effort in and seeing what we can raise. So heading over to the next 29-gallon tank, we have this group of Neolamprologous Caudopunctatus. This is a pretty neat looking, rock-dwelling Lake Tanganyika cichlid, and one that I'm definitely pretty happy to have here in the fish tank barn. I picked these fish up in August of 2021 at the Greenwater Aquarium Society swap from Primetime Aquatics. Definitely some pretty interesting fish, and one that I'm looking to get breeding here in the fish barn. So let's head over to the next 29-gallon tank and take a look at the Xenotoca Variata, or jeweled Goodeid. This is another Goodeid species, and I really like the sheens on this fish. Really kind of sparkly, and really kind of a neat little fish. Definitely a lot of fun, and definitely something that's a little bit off the radar. So let's head down to the next 29-gallon tank, which is kind of interesting. This tank is home to the Gold Vienna lower sword guppies, as well as my black plumetail platies. I do need to do some work on this tank, because this colony seems to have got infected from a different group of guppies. So I really do need to go and split these out and move the good guppies into a new tank. That'll be coming here in the near future. So the next fish is another recent addition, the Nanochromis Teugelsi. This fish seems to be kind of reclusive, but still doing pretty well here in the fish tank barn. I haven't seen anything in terms of fry production or anything like that, but we'll just have to wait and see. So next up is a group of Panther Danios that I have in another 20-gallon long right below the Nanochromis. I've had these fish for quite a while, and they have spawned for me on occasion, but unfortunately I've not been able to save too many of the fry. This is another egg-laying species that I really do need to get to work on. So let's take a look at my first group of trout Goodeids, or Iliodon furcidans. I got these last summer from Aquabid, and these are the Greg Sage line. This is really one of my favorite Goodeid species, with its beautiful coloration and yellow finnage. So we're going to make another turn here and take a look at this 30-gallon tank that's home to my group of tiger Limia, or Limia Islay. Its beautiful coloration and its tiger stripe pattern really makes this an amazing fish. Definitely one that's underrated in the hobby for sure. Also inhabiting this tank are a couple of flash plecos as well. Definitely another tiger stripe fish to go with the Limia. Let's go below the Limia tank and take a look at these black Moscow guppies. I got these at the OCA Extravaganza this year, and I do think I happen to see some fry in here, so that's definitely a win. This is a type of guppy that I've had trouble with in the past, so definitely good to see some fry from these fish. Alright, so moving on to the next tank here are the Skiffia multipunctata. These are a pretty cool fish, and another one of my favorite Goodeids. I really think the males are stunning with their yellow coloration and black speckling. So let's go ahead and take a look here at the Tequila Goodeid. Got these fish in a 29-gallon tank with some Vallisneria and a piece of driftwood. These fish have done pretty well in here, and definitely a great little fish. I really do enjoy the males with their orange tails. So let's go ahead and take a look now at this 55-gallon tank, which is home to some pretty neat looking fish. The first one are these Goiter River rainbow fish that I got from Jimmy from the Aquarium Co-op right before he moved out to Washington. The second are some Xiphopohorous Evelynae that I got at the AOLA down in Florida. I really do like the red color on the Swordtails, and I've actually got this rainbow fish to breed some. There are a couple of fry in here that spawned in another tank before I moved them upstairs. I did get a couple of fry from the rainbow fish in a prior tank they were living in, and those have now moved in with these fish as well. So I did make a spawning mop for these fish. I'm definitely pretty excited to get these breeding and getting some more BAP points. So this first 20-gallon tank here is my group of Girardus metallicus. This started out as a group of about 5 or 6 fish and has just blossomed into all these fry. This is probably one of the most productive tanks that I have here in the fish tank barn right now. And I'm really happy with the reproduction of these fish. I really do love the Giardus metallicus with its very unique black chin look. So the next 20-gallon tank is home to the Snow-Cross Endlers. These are a pretty little Endler that I've had for quite a while here in the barn and are another very prolific breeder. Heading over to this next group of tanks are my shell dwellers, the Neolamprologous Caudopunctatus. I'd originally gotten a small group from Jimmy from the aquarium co-op when I'd gotten the rainbow fish, but I also supplemented it with some other fish from Sand City cichlids. This colony is going quite nicely right now and really doing quite well. Alright, so let's go ahead now and take a look at these Xiphophorous Evelynae. I got a group of these about a year ago, and these have been probably one of the more prolific Swordtails here in the fish tank barn. Gotten quite a few fry, and they've been doing quite well. Definitely one of my favorites when it comes to Swordtails. So the next tank up is a tank that we've not seen in a while. The 54-gallon tank that was once home to my betta sorority. Unfortunately, I did end up losing the bettas. They just kept dying off one by one. I really wasn't able to figure out why. This tank still does have the Ember Tetras and Rasboras that I got to go with the bettas from Aquahuna. Also in this tank is a school of Adolphi Coriodoris, which I really do enjoy. The one piece of good news is there are bettas in this tank, but they are my betta Edithae that I've had for quite a while. Unfortunately, they are very reclusive, and in this large tank, there's a high likelihood they really won't find them. I do have to do some work on this tank in terms of the plants and getting rid of some of the mulm, but I definitely do see a turnaround for this tank in 2022. So just across from the 54-gallon bow front is this 15-gallon tank that's home to my Fundulopanchax Gardneroi Gold. I picked up these beautiful fish at the Michiana Aquarium Society's Killie Carnival back in May of last year. Definitely a very beautiful fish, and definitely one I'm really happy to have here in the fish room. Need to get a spawning mop in here and see if I can get this pair breeding out. So we now come to another 37-gallon cube, this tank being home to a couple of different species, one being the Variatus platy from Rio Coaquilco. This group I got from our last auction, and this is a duplicate of a group you'll see here in the future. I got this group at our last Motor City Aquarium Club auction, and this is the first group of two that you'll see here in this video. This fish is really stunning once it gets colored up. You'll see the adult specimens here in a few minutes, and they're absolutely stunning. Also in this tank, you'll see a group of Lake Tanganyika cichlids. The Xiphochromis leptosoma from Utinta. This is definitely another cool Xiphochromis, and one that I really enjoy. I will eventually split this group up into two separate tanks, but they seem to be doing fine for now. So unfortunately for this next 37-gallon cube, there's quite a bit of crazing on the acrylic, so it's definitely hard to see in here. But this tank is home to my Limia Melanogaster, as well as one blue Flanum pleco. I really do enjoy the sheens on the Limia Melanogaster. It's definitely a beautiful fish, and one I've actually taken and shown at the ALA. So next up is this 29-gallon tank with these Xiphophorous Evelynae. I picked these up last spring at the Killie Carnival, and they're definitely some pretty interesting fish. They've grown up quite nicely and actually have produced fry of their own, which, like I said earlier, is one of the more rewarding things to have happen in your fish room. So let's head over to this side of the fish barn and this rack of tanks over here against the wall. The first set of tanks on top are the 20-gallon highs, and in this first tank is home to the Limia vittata, or Cuban Limia. Like the name says, these Limia come from Cuba and actually look a lot like the Xiphophorous Evelynae that we saw earlier in the video. I really do enjoy these fish with their black speckling and silver bodies. I did get these fish from the Killie Carnival back in the early spring last year. I really do enjoy them, and this is actually one of the species that's been pretty prolific here in the fish tank barn. So moving over to the next 20-gallon tank is this group of German yellow guppies. Like the Limia we just saw, I purchased these fish at the Killie Carnival in spring of 2021. I really do enjoy this fish with its beautiful sheens and yellow tail. And like the Limia, these fish have been really prolific, and I've been able to get some out to some of my other fellow fish keepers. Definitely something I enjoy. Heading over to my next 20-gallon tank here are the Xiphophorous Variatas from Rio Coaquilco. This is the second group of these fish that you've seen in the barn. I picked up this group in Akron in the summer of 2021 at the Akron Aquarium Society Summer Swap. This was definitely a great find and definitely some really beautiful fish. Probably in the top 5 of my favorite fish here in the fish room. Alright, so let's head over to this next 20-gallon tank, which is home to another killifish species, the Aphosimian Australe Gold. I got a pair of these fish at the Killie Carnival that was put on by the Michiana Aquarium Society in South Bend, Indiana. You won't see the female in this video, but she's in here, and I really find this to be a beautiful and striking killifish species. These next fish hold a special place in my heart. I originally ordered 2 pairs of these Hawaiian blue Moscow guppies, and unfortunately, I ended up losing both of the males soon after I got them. But thankfully, the females were hit, and I was able to get quite a few fry from it. Since then, these fish have grown out quite nicely and are still producing many fry of their own. I really do enjoy the beautiful sheens on this fish, which make it absolutely striking. This fish originated from the west coast of the United States and is a Luke Roebuck strain, so it's definitely a strain that I'm really happy to have and happy to keep here in the fish barn. So these Vienna guppies are another favorite guppy of mine. I got these from Jimmy from the Aquarium Co-op when he moved back to Washington from Ohio. I find these fish to be absolutely striking with their black and yellow markings. They're absolutely beautiful. I definitely want to thank Corey from the Aquarium Co-op for bringing these into the country. Definitely a great fish, and definitely one I'm really happy to have. So next up is another cool little Endler species, the Santa Maria Endlers. I really do enjoy the black and red striping on these fish, but I do need to go through and kind of sort through these and kind of call out some of the individuals that are not up to standard. I've had these fish for a couple of years now, having purchased them from Dan's Fish back in 2019. Definitely a very beautiful fish, and definitely one of the Endlers that I enjoy here in the fish barn. So moving along the bottom row here is a 20-gallon long that's home to some Xiphopohorous babies from some of the fish that we saw downstairs. Got about 8 or so in here, and they've been growing out quite nicely. So eventually, they'll be moved again back downstairs with the parents. So moving along here to this 40-gallon breeder is one of the swordtail species that started it all, the green swordtail. This is the closest thing you'll get to a wild-type swordtail, and then these were bred with platies in order to get the colors of swordtails that you see today. So next up is another very cool Lake Tanganyika cichlid tank. So there's 2 types of cichlids in this tank. So first off, the Parasiprochromis negropinus blue neon chituda, and secondly, the Ultralamprologous Caudopunctatus sumbu shell. Definitely some cool little fish, and definitely some fish I like to get breeding here in the fish barn. This 29-gallon tank here at the end is home to another group of trout Goodeids, or Iliodon furcidans. I bought these in Akron, Ohio last summer at a fish swap, and these are believed to be the Xanthusi morph, which is a different morph than the Greg Sage line that we saw earlier. But like the fish we saw earlier, these fish have been pretty prolific in producing fry, so that's something I'm definitely pretty excited about. The last fish I want to show you is the Poeciliopsis infans. This is a cool little fish that I got from the ALA auction back in October of this year. This is definitely a cool little Livebearer. Not a whole lot of color, but one that I'm definitely happy to have here in the fish room. From what I can tell so far, is it looks like I have 2 males and 1 female. Definitely looking at getting some more of these producing and getting some more here in the fish barn.